Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our very first Impact Cities webinar. This webinar has been produced in the run-up to Impact Cities, which will take place on the 4th and 5th of December in Las Vegas. It will be focused on core outcomes and impacts and real opportunities. Impact Cities will be the first event to truly connect business government to create the blueprint for tech urban powered future. You can look at the full agenda and speaker lineup at www.impacts-cities.com. But today we will be looking at the topic of urban mobility on demand. With the help of our panelists, we'll be tackling how the public and private spheres can collaborate through partnerships to enhance mobility. To illustrate this process, we'll be looking at a case study of a zero-emission microtransit mobility model in the St. Louis area, and how this service is augmenting urban mobility by complementing traditional public transit and private transportation across the area. Joining us today on today's webinar, we have Mark Minden, Vice President of Emerging Markets at Electric Cab of North America, Mobin Khan, COO and VP of Downtown STL, Donna Poe, Executive Director of Downtown Kennewick Special Business District. The format for today's webinar will be as follows. So we're going to start with a short presentation from each of our speakers before we move on to a few questions. As an attendee, you do get the opportunity to ask questions throughout the session by using the question option in the GoToWebinar pop-up window on your screen. So please do be active in doing so. And if we have time at the end, I'll make sure to ask them to our speakers. But without further ado, I'd like to kick off with our first speaker of the day and hand over to Mark Minden, VP of Emerging Markets at Electric Cab of North America. Mark, the floor is yours.
Thanks for having us today. I'm Mark Minden, VP of Emerging Markets for Electric Cab North America. We provide mobility as a service through a district. Our main customers are public transit authorities, cities, private developers, universities, anywhere with a need for first last mile transportation. And we provide this with electric shuttles, providing a turnkey service. My first slide here, you'll notice two pictures. One is on the left, just for reference, is the front of the convention center in the city of Austin, Texas. And of course, on the right, you have St. Louis, Missouri, down there by the arch.
Oh, Mark, sorry, could you just accept the prompt to share the screen? We can't quite see your screen just at this second before you get too far down the slide deck.
Gotcha.
There we go. All good to go.
Okay. So now that you can see the photos, the one on the left is of the Austin Convention Center, and the one on the right is downtown St. Louis. A little history. We started a electric vehicle for hire transportation company in the city of Austin a little over 8 years ago. And so we grew that to be North America's largest vehicle fleet for hire, utilizing low-speed electric vehicles. And as we were getting into expanding operations in this market, the whole concept of smart cities happened. And we looked at what we were doing in providing first last mile transit throughout districts, and looked at our model and decided that we need to collaborate to build a scalable solution that is turnkey, that can go anywhere and provide free transit for those who utilize it within those districts, connecting them with electric shuttles and essentially driving economic development. Like I said before, our main customers are governments, private developers, downtown business districts, public transit agencies, universities, nonprofits, anywhere mass transit providers are. Our ultimate goal is really to create accessibility to public transportation, and the way we do that is through our business model. What we do is we stamp out a zone, and we provide a free circulator in those districts so that people who are riding public transit, whether it be a light rail or a bus system into an area, they can easily and seamlessly get a e-cab, whether it's an app or ride hail, and take that anywhere within the district. Access to mobility for us really does drive economic stability. And if we can create a car optionless zone where people can live, work, and play, and get to where they need to go, it's gonna blow the area up and really drive that economic development and create a better quality of life for everybody living in the area. Here's a picture of our GEM-E6 shuttle. Part of the accessibility of this shuttle is it's got 6 points of entry. So as we're going through a district, our pullover and load time is very rapid. People can utilize this shuttle in a number of different ways. You can street hail the shuttle. You can use a mobile app. We have a mobile dispatch. And then we also create what we call a dynamic circulator, where we create stops within the district so that if a person doesn't have a smartphone or access to a phone, they still have access to this free mobility within the area. We want to create equitable mobility for all. And with our system, with our stops, that provides access to those people. If you look at connected vehicles, we're on the forefront of this. We have everything from a data aggregation platform. We're IoT capable, and we're fully telematic. Data is the new currency of the world. And so when we went to provide a scalable solution to cities, we really focused on our data and what we're providing. The data we capture is pretty detailed. We can tell, point of origin, where they're going, what time of day, how long they waited, if they live, work, or are visiting the area, ridership demographics. We can add all these things and customize the data for our partners. And so when we partner with the city, we, unlike other companies, we turn around and provide that data directly back to the city. The goal being that providing this data and showing exactly the mobility patterns and the usage will help create a better system overall. The reality is individual car ownership is a broken system. We spend entirely too much of our day in idle in traffic, utilizing a vehicle that we only use actually 5% of the day. The rest of the time it's parked somewhere. And if we can recreate this system and enhance public transportation, we're gonna have a better quality of life for everybody. The data we provide in a dashboard, a real-time customized dashboard, and so city partners and developers and public transit agencies can look at their mobility patterns and be able to gain insight into how to be more efficient. I just want to sum it up there. I'm going to leave my information. Feel free if anybody needs to contact me, and I'll let Donna and Mobin explain more about some of our programs.
Great, thank you very much, Mark. So we're going to move on to Mobin now. Mobin, you will get the screen prompt in 1 second. Oh, Mobin, I think you've muted yourself. Are you able to unmute?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, all good.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for everyone in the audience that have joined. My name is Mobin Khan. I am the Chief Operating Officer of Downtown STL Inc. and Vice President of Economic Development here as well. We are a public-private partnership and a nonprofit and a small nonprofit focused on the economic development of downtown St. Louis. We also manage a community improvement district, which a lot of folks also call a business improvement district or special service areas in different parts of the country. And our focus, in addition to economic development through our community improvement district, is to provide services that supplement services provided by the city. So that includes clean and safe for the area of downtown, assistance with safety and security, and general community engagement. So just to give a quick background on, well, St. Louis, the largest city in the state of Missouri, and our entity focused on downtown St. Louis is always working with all our partner nonprofits, public sector entities, and private sector entities within the region, the state, and at the federal government level as well, to show how downtown St. Louis fits within the overall region. You see a map of St. Louis here, which is about a 15 county region spread between Missouri and Illinois. The yellow circle in between is the geographic center of the region, downtown St. Louis. And to zoom in a little bit, this is a map of focused on downtown St. Louis that is published by our Convention and Visitors Bureau. It north on the top, and you'll see Gateway Arch National Park grounds on the right. And one of the things as it relates to economic development that we have had to address on a constant basis is the activity in downtown St. Louis, economic activity, residential or commercial business, is not all in one place. It's dispersed in different clusters around the area. If you'll, these 5 yellow circles, if you will, showcase those sort of key hotspots of economic activity. Gateway Arch, the City Museum, our Convention and Visitors Center, the St. Louis Cardinals baseball stadium, and the Union Station on the very right, very left bottom. One of the challenges that we've had because of this is if all of these different clusters are not able to build off and leverage on each other's energy because there is not as easy directly direct and visually connected approach from one to the other. So if you, for example, are visiting the baseball stadium, it's hard to get to think that you can go and check out some of the other places in downtown as well. And just like many other downtowns or central business districts across the country, that's been one of our key questions to solve on. You help build a particular district or a particular entertainment cluster or what have you, but then somehow it just gets isolated and is not really contributing to the broader whole. And we started looking at a lot of different ways and how we can do from infrastructure improvement and other things that we can do. And in our calculation, transportation or transit was a key component to connect all of these. Now, as it stood before, there were multiple options for people to go between these clusters. One is on the left top, you'll see the image of what we call downtown trolley. It's a fixed route bus service that circulates within downtown, operated by St. Louis Metro Transit. The other photo in the middle actually shows a parking situation, a typical parking situation in downtown, 2 parking garages on either side, and the street parking completely full. And then the third is people can walk. So if you are a worker, I'm going to go back to that map, and let's say you're a worker in one of these circle hotspots. You work in an office building there, and you want to go for a lunch at another at a restaurant, which may be in one of the other hotspot circles. Now you have an option to do all three, but any of these three um, are not feasible for a whole lot of people, either because parking may take a long time, or walking may not work for everybody, or the fixed route service doesn't really serve everyone because the route is not effective or the wait times are too much. So we started looking at, okay, what are the alternatives? One, what are the alternatives, and what are the bigger questions that we're trying to solve? One was we got to improve the intra downtown mobility. People should not have to spend as much time to go 7, 8 blocks or 10 blocks, and should have more options to do that, to help improve parking issues. And we have a substantial amount of parking in downtown. However, not just like any other downtown, it may not be available right in front of a particular building you're going to. So that sort of creates this perception that there's not enough parking, or parking is very expensive. Um, then the retail and restaurant business in downtown, how we can help gain how can we help those businesses get more customers, more business? And then last one, but certainly one of the key ones for us, is to help improve both perception and reality of safety. People feeling more comfortable, more safe, going from point to point within downtown all hours of the day. So we looked at a couple of different options. One, certainly improving our bike infrastructure and bringing different options for people who would like to bike, whether it's bike share, dock or dockless, or some kind of employee support system, by operating different bike stations throughout downtown. And then we looked at a shuttle, an electric shuttle model that sort of circulates within downtown and serves customers in downtown. So we developed a pilot in partnership with Mark Minden's group, Electric Cab of North America, to have a solution that's on demand, so and dynamic routing, so it's not fixed and have the same problems as what a downtown trolley currently faces. Can be hailed via app, via phone, on the street. And also it is, at least for the pilot, it was available free to the public. And we just wrapped up our pilot program last month, and based on and one of the reasons why we did the pilot was we did it in partnership with the Metro Transit of St. Louis, was to see if our current model of a fixed route circulator is the only optimum model, or if there is something else that could work better, has more demand for that kind of service, and can, more importantly for us, help spur more economic development. And so far, the results have been very promising. We ran a public survey while the service was on, and for a month after we closed. And based on the response from those surveys and the ridership data, it sort of surpassed our wildest expectations. And now we're working in partnership with the by state to actually take it and adopt it as a long-term solution for downtown transit. In addition to that, in addition to the electric cab pilot, we also looked for other kinds of individual ride modes. We worked to get a bike share program launched. Some of the cities that had in the past, whether it's New York or Chicago, or which had fixed dock systems, they are very costly to install and often doesn't fit with the budgetary situation for most municipalities, and was certainly something that was not as feasible for St. Louis. And so we started looking for alternatives, and dockless, or one of the newer models, came around that time when we started exploring, and we decided to go with that. Electric scooters, they were just launched in town, but so far from the data, both bike share data and the scooter ridership data, it seems that the public has warmed up to it very, very well, and we will keep collecting data on all of these and see how this what changes we need to make as a public sector or a nonprofit entity, and what kind of policy decisions we need to make. What kind of infrastructure investment decisions we need to make. But one takeaway we certainly had from all of this is a lot of us in St. Louis used to think that it's a very car dependent town. But based on all the recent projects, and whether it's electric cab or bike share, that has turned out not to be the case. So we are very optimistic and continuing working on this model, where public-private model, I should emphasize, working with private sector companies and partnering with them to provide services that help economic development and serves the needs of our residents, workers, and businesses and tourists. So with that, thank you very much. I have my contact information on the slide if anybody wants to reach out to me directly for any questions or any references that you may need. So with that, thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much, Mobin. So we're going to go over to Donna now. Donna, you should get the prompt on your screen in a second. We have had a couple of questions coming in around the slides, and the answer is yes, we will be sending them out afterwards. So you will receive the recording, which will include audio and visual of the webinar session itself. So Donna, are you ready? Oh, Donna?
Yes, hold on.
Perfect. Okay, awesome.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, all good. We can hear you, Donna.
Okay, are the slides up?
Yep, slides are up. All good to go.
All right, good morning, everybody. I'm Donna Poe. I'm the Executive Director of Downtown Kirkwood Special Business District, and my contact information is here on the first slide. I thought that I would sort of set the scene, explain our situation, and then tell you how we executed the use of mobile transit to solve some of our issues. And I'm having trouble with this. Okay, so where is Kirkwood, Missouri? Kirkwood, Missouri is a suburb not too far from downtown St. Louis, where Mobin was discussing. We are about 20 minutes west of the Gateway Arch. It's a historic community founded in 1853. We're the first special business district, which is the similar thing as a community improvement district. We were the first In Missouri, our area is about a 16-block area, and it is a long rectangular shape, and the population here is about 28,000 people. Kirkwood is fortunate to have many regional landmarks and county and city parks, and we also have a farmers market. On the first slide, you will see the Amtrak train and the train station that is in the heart of our community. It is centrally located. It is an active train station with thousands of passengers coming through every year. The Magic House, which you see on the bottom left, is a nationally acclaimed children's museum with about 500,000 visitors a year. And Kirkwood Farmers Market is also located in the core of downtown Kirkwood, and it is a community landmark, a gathering place, and that is in operation from March through December each year. Downtown Kirkwood is fortunate to have many long-term businesses, lots of shopping and dining, and not enough parking in some people's estimation. So that was our reason for exploring some other options. We have multiple surface lots. We have one large parking garage that shares its space with some residents, part of a multi-use development that is near the center of the Central Business District. We took on some strategic initiatives to try and help solve the problem. There is this very concerning problem that people thought that we did not have enough parking in downtown Kirkwood. So our plan was to improve public parking perceptions and experiences through analysis, communication, and partnerships. We looked into the reality of this, and sometimes perception is reality. We were hearing from our retailers that people were not wanting to come to downtown Kirkwood because they thought there wasn't anywhere to park, where in reality, we wrapped up a master plan and parking study last fall, and according to the plan, our public parking on and off street meets or exceeds demands. So we still have people saying, when are they going to do something about the parking? So we decided, after seeing some of the use of the e-cabs in downtown St. Louis being used to help move people from ball games to the Washington Avenue area, that we would look into trying this for ourselves. So we had a pilot program that we rolled out last fall in 2017. That is actually our city council in the cab on the right. We rolled it out in conjunction with the presentation of the downtown plan, and we ran the cab on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday evenings through November and December. We also decided to make it a free service with, calling a phone number or just waving to hail the driver during operator hours for a ride. So the program was very well received. It cost us about $20,000. We had 2 vehicles, 850 riders, mostly from Kirkwood, which was something that was very surprising to us. We're in an area where we're a regional destination, and we were surprised that so many of the riders were local. We received extensive media coverage throughout the country and locally. We were kind of overwhelmed by the interest in this, and very, very pleased. The community response was enthusiastic. The parking perceptions have been improved. Our district revenue has increased. We found out for us that Friday evening was the most utilized time and Saturday afternoon was the least utilized time. I think that would all vary based on different communities and different applications. So based on what we learned, we have brought the connector, which is what we call it, back this year. It's running currently from June through December. Our funding model is that the connector is funded mostly by Downtown Kirkwood Special Business District, which is supported by businesses within our district through property taxes and business license fees. We supplemented our budget by selling door advertising to merchant partners in the downtown Kirkwood area. That was something that our board thought was very important, is to promote our local businesses. And we also are fortunate in Kirkwood to have our own electric company. So the electric company is also sponsoring our e-cabs, and starting this month, our service will be wrapped with graphics from Kirkwood Electric. Right now, we are running in our small area one vehicle until the holiday season, and we're scheduled to add additional vehicles at that time. Based on what we learned, moving forward, we are planning on expanding the service. We're not exactly sure how that's going to look, but we have a 500-seat performing arts center being built near our downtown, and we're expecting some additional multifamily housing, and we're planning to use this connector to make connections from the theater and the Performing Arts Center to shopping and dining. Kind of what Mobin was talking about is having different areas that are walkable, but people don't necessarily want to do that, and some of the older population is not capable of doing that. So we are looking forward to continuing our program and seeing how it evolves to serve our community and serve our businesses within our community. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Donna. So we are I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and then we'll take a couple of questions from the audience. But just a very quick reminder that this webinar is produced as a precursor to the Impact Cities event, which will take place on the 4th and 5th of December in Las Vegas. And we're really looking to tackle how public and private partnerships can help shape and foster urban tech innovation. So if you'd like to find out any more, then please visit our website at www.impact-cities.com. It is also on your screen right now. But let's move on to the first question, and actually I'm going to direct this one to Mark. It is a twofold question, but it's what led you to the ECAB pilot on a PPP model, so public-private partnership model, and what was the most surprising takeaway you learnt?
I would say every area is different. What really leads to getting open into a market for us was building a campaign. It wasn't just meeting with the city or meeting just with the public transit agency or meeting just with the local stakeholders. It was meeting with everybody and creating a census that they wanted to try something new. I find that in this new tech world and in the smart cities area that the vendors can become the glue to get certain stakeholders together and to get the city with the public transit agency, or to get the downtown partnership working with Bi-State Metro on projects. And we all know people are different. Organizations are siloed and often operate differently, and communication isn't always the best. But I think through technology, you can be the glue within a district to get those pilots going. I would say one of the biggest surprises was in Kirkwood. They have some senior living facilities within the district, and we didn't realize how big that would catch on. We have a lot of people that are essentially, for lack of a better term, trapped in their senior living facility because their loved ones would come visit them, but it would be a challenge for them to load them up in the car, go drop them off at a restaurant, go take their car and find a place to park, get back in their car, go back and pick them up. What we found was now the whole family could go in and visit, hop on, click a button, everybody, the shuttle picks them up right where they are and takes them right where they want to go. And that became, kind of an eye opener for us.
Great, thanks, Mark. Moving on to Mobin, what were your thoughts on this?
Well, a couple of things. I think the public-private partnership, the PPP model, is at least from our experience was an important one for us to have gone through. And the reason was for many of the things that we wanted to do to address our challenges and also leverage some of the opportunities cost a whole lot. And in nonprofit or public sector space, you're always picking and choosing which of your multiple priorities to address with your limited budget. And so doing a large sort of capital expenditure project at that time, for one, it was not feasible because of the capital requirement needs, and second, it was going to take a whole lot longer. So we started exploring how can we partner with a company, a private sector, or multiple private sector companies to create sort of a win-win situation. And that's what we ended up doing with Mark and his group. That's what we are trying to do with the bike share, with Line Bike, and then Ride Bird Scooter. And the key difference that we found, one, of course, from the public sector side, it doesn't require as much funding, even if you have to subsidize some things. Second, time to market was relatively fast than a pure publicly funded alternative. So that's one of the key things we found. Second, I know you asked about the surprise, and I mentioned this earlier in my presentation as well, that one of the key surprises for us that we learned was these alternative modes of transportation, even if a city or a town may be developed as spread out as some of the most spread out towns in the country, where everybody thinks, you can't live without a car. That was certainly, to a large degree, thought to be true in the case of St. Louis. But we were frankly very surprised by the speed at which people have been taking up these alternative modes of transportation for doing their last mile short distance commuting within downtown St. Louis, and in a lot of cases going beyond downtown St. Louis.
Great, thanks, Mobin. And Donna, just your thoughts on this?
Well, I would think that some of the things that I would have to say about this echo Mobin's regarding, limited resources and trying to be creative and decide what to do. We really felt a lot of pressure from visitors and businesses in our business district about what we were going to do about the parking, and building a parking garage, which has come up numerous times, is expensive and costly, and then you still wonder if people are really going to use it even after you build it. So we thought we would test the ECAB program, and it has turned out well for us. One of the most surprising things that I would say is that even people who haven't ridden in the e-cab just like the idea of it. So when we ask someone, oh, how do you like the new service? Oh, I like it, they will say. And then I will ask, have you ridden in it? And they say no, but we just like the idea of it. We like to see it around and knowing that it's there. So it's been a really great public relations tool for us, and the drivers have also been able to serve as good ambassadors for us as well.
Great, thanks, Donna. So because we were running a little bit late, I'm actually going to cut my questions short, and we've only got 5 minutes left, so I wanted to take a couple from the audience. And we've had one that's come in for Mobin and Donna from Mohammed Anwar, which talks about, I don't quite understand the US local public policy scene, but do you face any competitive hostility from government transport providers? And if so, what's the pitch to them?
So I can go first on providing like our context in terms of how we work with the transit agency in St. Louis. You know, one of the things that a whole lot of public transit agencies, transportation agencies in the U.S. are facing are challenges directly from some of the rideshare companies, whether it's Uber or Lyft. And in general, the ridership outside of you know, the major markets like New York and major transit-dependent markets like New York and Chicago, for many of the other markets, transit agencies certainly don't see as much ridership, general public taking their trains or buses as much as they would like, or even the capacity, as much capacity as they have built. And now added with all these extra competition with rideshare companies like Uber and Lyft, there is becoming more and more apparent a need to continually justify investments in public transit. And then long-term sustainability of it. These public transit agencies obviously are funded by taxpayer money, and so it all comes down to, you know, how taxpayers see the use of a particular agency or its long-term need. And that's why innovation, even in the existing transit agency model, is key. And if there is a bus that's running continuously and it's been running on the same route for 20 years, but people have not been taking it for a long time, and the ridership continues to decline, there is a very strong motivation to think of, okay, what is the new innovation? A lot of cities in different parts of the country have actually, instead of directly competing with the rideshare companies, have partnered with them. And those rideshare companies have then become sort of last mile partners, where if a train or a bus doesn't go to your house, but it goes, you know, a half a mile away from your house, you get to that much distance, and then in partnership with whichever city we're talking about, a particular rideshare company can give you a subsidized ride further to get to your home. So there is a strong motivation from both public sector and private sector to work together, at least in the U.S., to adapt urban mobility demands.
Great, thanks, Mobin. Sorry, go ahead, Donna.
I would add that I agree with everything that Mobin said, and that the folks from our local transit authority actually sought us out and had a meeting with me, you know, asking all kinds of questions about how we did this and why, et cetera. You know, and I think they're very interested, as Mobin said, in solutions. We have a lot of empty buses running around in the St. Louis market, and I think there's a better way, and I think they think there's probably a better way too, and we're all searching for it.
Great, thanks, Donna. So there's a question that's come through quite a lot, and I'm going to direct this one towards Mark. And I know there's been other sort of discussions around ride sharing and e-hailing and how it's actually increasing congestion by adding vehicles to the road. And kind of the question's been asked, how is this not adding to congestion?
Yeah, I can answer that. Let me kind of piggyback on that last question as well, too. A lot of the public transit agencies are becoming what we call mobility brokers because of the same pain points that Mobin pointed out, that ridership is down and that there's other alternatives out there. And so instead of looking at competition, I think that public transit agencies, at least in the U.S., they're now focused on working with public-private partnerships to answer new innovations and to be the brokers to cater it in versus competing with it directly. And so I just wanted to kind of add that caveat. The way we do, so yes, there is information out there that TNCs do cause more traffic. Where we're very different is we're a dedicated shuttle within a district. And so our drivers are hired through us. We're the fleet operator. We hire them. We give them background checks. We insure them. We develop them as ambassadors for the area. Technically, for a TNC, they can't tell a individual contractor where to go and how long to be there. And so ride sharing becomes very difficult on first last mile with TNCs because those are independent contractors and they can't be specifically told where to go at any given time. And so if you need a service that's reliable, that goes from point A to point B for 8 hours a day, it's difficult to do with a TNC. As our shuttles are 6-passenger shuttles and are electric, they're slender, they're a little more narrow, and they only go within 1 to 3 miles within that district. We're essentially creating optimization, route optimization within that area and working with public transit agencies. And so if our ridership builds up big enough, well, we replace it with a bus. The ultimate goal is to increase accessibility to public transportation for us.
Great, thanks, Mark. And just one final question that we've got time for, and it's talking about if the e-car was driver assisted or autonomous. If it were to be an autonomous vehicle, would you consider blocking or cordoning off a lane for dedicated use? And I suppose I can throw this out to all three of you.
Yeah. So I'd like to also say we do have an autonomous vehicle and we are doing demos with our autonomous vehicle. But with the current technology in autonomy, it doesn't necessarily go point to point. And so we still find a lot of value in having a human driver as an ambassador for the area. And if you think about human behavior, currently we see a lot of ridership with that ambassador being able to communicate and making people feel safe versus a female hopping on an individual shuttle at night by herself or with a couple of people she doesn't know, and it's driving them where they want to go. As far as lane usage, yeah, I think the whole system, we're getting down to urban planning now, and it really comes down to mobility in urban planning. There should be dedicated lanes for autonomous vehicles and connectors, and we need to look at, I look back at St. Louis, we used to have one of the most robust rail systems in the country. We had a trolley system that went everywhere and it worked and it was efficient and people used it. Well, we tore it out for the car on the road. And so we as a society kind of created our own problems here, and now we're trying to work to fix it. And I think dedicated lanes and an overhaul of the whole system is needed.
Great, thanks, Mark. Donna and Mobin, have you any thoughts on this?
Well, I would say that we probably are not ready for that at this point. We're just not set up for it. But I think as we, go into the future, I think it's something that people need to keep in mind. And as Mark said with urban planning, look at the possibilities and see if those can be built in when streets and urban centers are redesigned.
I will sort of echo that point as well, and say that even though there has been tremendous advances made in autonomous driving, and it will continue to be the case in the foreseeable future. Just in the technology space, we're not there yet to have a reliable autonomous vehicle on urban streets outside of highways. I mean, a highway probably has a lot more feasible right now, but not the streets in the local streets in the city. So to dedicate at this point a lane in urban areas, space is always at a premium. Lanes are always at a very high premium. So if you dedicate a lane that is not going to be used as much right now or the next couple of years is likely not the best use of that high premium space. What will happen though, and this is kind of an important distinction, autonomous vehicles are basically an evolution of your standard use, single use personal car. It's just that now you don't have to drive it. It's the machine or the computer that's driving it. From the congestion point of view, from the urban planning point of view, the evidence is mixed at this point, and it's very little evidence whether it's going to increase sprawl or reduce sprawl. So lane usage from that perspective is a whole other conversation in terms of how it interacts with public transit and rideshare, because the Ubers and Lyfts, where it's a single use, one person in the vehicle kind of concept, autonomous vehicles may be a replacement of that down the road. And if that is the case, when it does become, the question would be, why should you dedicate a lane for autonomous vehicle compared to any other person who's riding in a car on its own, right? There are dedicated lanes for currently in different cities for buses because it's a multi-user situation, or carpool lanes because it sort of tries to reduce congestion. We don't know that yet about autonomous vehicles, and I will go back to at least the autonomous vehicles for single person use. Autonomous buses are different area altogether. And just to add to the previous conversation about congestion with rideshare. So the primary set of data and feedback coming on that rideshare is adding to congestion is primarily from the markets that are already heavily reliant on public transit. So for example, New York or Chicago. And the reason is Uber and Lyft in those cases are substituting the metro or subway system usage. So someone who may have taken a subway ride is now getting on Uber on the road, and that may add more vehicles. Versus in other cities where Uber and Lyft might actually be substituting that person's car ride in their personal vehicle sitting by themselves. So just want to point out that is a very important distinction. And for those markets, those cities, it seems to be, and it may in the future as well, pan out very differently than how rideshare will impact usage of public streets in the cities like New York.
Great, thank you, Mobin. Well, unfortunately, that brings us to the end of this webinar. I'd like to remind you all that you will receive the webinar recording within a week of today, and that will also include the visual, so you will be able to see the slides. Just a final reminder that this was produced as a precursor for Impact Cities, which will take place on the 4th and 5th of December in Las Vegas. You can follow the link on the screen to the website to discover the full speaker lineup and agenda. And we do also have an exclusive webinar discount. If you'd like to buy a standard pass, you can use the discount code IMPACTWEB when registering. But I'd like to bring the webinar to a close now and thank our three panelists, Mark from Electric Cab of North America, Mobin from Downtown STL, and Donna from Downtown Kirkwood. Thank you very much for participating, and I hope that everyone listening in today has a good day. Thank you very much. Goodbye.